Hey, welcome back, everybody. Dr. Greg Eckel. This is What the Health. Today's topic is sugar's effects on aging you rapidly, eating habits to help you live longer. My guest is Lynne Bowman, author of the Amazon bestseller. Did I blow it? She's saying hello. Author of the Amazon bestseller Brownies for Breakfast, has been featured on women's expos throughout the country, teaming up with the actress Deidre Hall to write and publish Deidre Hall's Kitchen Close-Up. That was 2010. And Deidre Hall's How Does She Do It? That was 2012. She's won national awards as a creative director for Silicon Valley companies, was creative director at E&J Gallo Winery, advertising manager at Redken Laboratories, freelance for agencies in San Jose, LA, and New York. She's also worked as an actress, a makeup artist, a screenwriter, an illustrator, legal journalist, and television weather person. Lynne and her husband have a small farm on the coast of Northern California. Welcome aboard.
I'm exhausted listening to all that. And
You
I
have
left
had
I
some
left stuff
lifetimes.
out, Greg.
Yes, you have had some lifetimes, and I'm really excited about this because, eating habits that help you live longer. I am not going to give away any secrets of this, and I have some questions loaded for you.
Good.
But I want to know, you've got this whole concept of brownies for breakfast. It reminds me of my aunt where we would go to eat pies for breakfast. So, what is the deal, Lynne?
What is the deal?
Yes.
Well, the deal is I want everybody eating fabulous, delicious food all the time. Really good food, whole food, real food,
Hmm.
lots of plants. Okay, is sounding familiar?
Yeah.
It's how your grandma and your auntie wanted us to eat too, but we've kind of gone off the rails the last 50 to 60 years in the way we eat crappy food all the time.
What
I lucked
what do we
out.
have? Yeah. So there's a couple components that I want to get into with you because let's talk about what fast food really costs somebody because it's convenient along those lines, this off the rails in the last 50 to 60 years. What do you think has happened there?
Well, I think, along with a lot of other people in the food uh, business and the health business, we have been eating manufactured food for a long time now. We've been eating food that was invented literally by guys in a building in New Jersey in what's called the craveability industry.
Wow.
Yeah, taking cheap components, the sugar, alcohol kind of things, this, everybody knows this. You've read about it, you've heard about it. All of these components made it easy and cheap to create food, put some flavors in it, put it in a box that said healthy, fun, and suddenly you had a product that cost you practically nothing and that you could sell for a decent amount of money and sell billions of them. So the cereals, the packaged, meals, the stuff that you've been grabbing and going with for all these years um, is not really food in the true sense of the word. It's engineered feed for people. And that's just as bad for us as we imagine engineered feed is for those poor cattle out there or the sheep or whatever. And I bring that up because as bad as it is for us, it's also really bad for Mother Earth. Every time we open up a plastic package full of something that's kind of hard to identify, but it cost us $12, we are costing the environment a huge price. And that's not a political statement. That's just how it is.
Truth. That's truth. When you say manufactured food, the thing that conjures up in my mind is Soylent Green. Did you
Yeah,
ever
of
see that
course.
movie
Yeah.
about, processed people being fed to people? And this whole component of manufactured food or better living through chemistry, I really, I'm a naturopathic physician and Chinese medicine practitioner. I'm very into natural processes, following the environment. What happens in the macrocosm environment happens in the microcosm, our bodies. And you look at, there isn't, the experiment is failed at this point. We look at life expectancy going down, the health of people. You've seen it in your lifetime. You've seen a massive change. um, this whole linking food culture to environment. You had a concept in the show notes of, really the culture of the family table, because I really want to have that conversation with you. Living on a small farm in Northern California, which is like the bounty land of farming, and the cornucopia of uh, richness of life. So, can you bring that into our conversation here?
Oh, absolutely. Because you can't really pull them apart. What happened was we stopped sitting down to the table and eating with our family and friends. And we've got 2 or 3 generations of kids that have grown up eating in the back of a car out of a bag.
Mm.
And I don't mean an occasional meal. I mean all the time. And literally, I've talked to teachers and other grown-ups who are around kids who talk about how the kids have never learned how to eat with utensils.
Mm.
I mean, a thing that we just took so for granted. But to me, it's so many other losses along with the health loss and the loss of the just eating that good food. When you don't have family and friends around a table, there's so much education that's not happening there. And I actually think that a lot of what's happening in the country right now, politically, is because people have not learned how to argue in
Mm.
a kind and decent way. They haven't learned how to pass the salt.
Yeah.
They haven't learned how to share the main dish, the entree, in a
Yeah.
very nice way. They haven't learned how to clean up their mess,
Yeah.
right? And these are all the things that you learn in the kitchen, at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to go to the dining room. Let's just talk kitchen table. And I didn't grow up in a particularly elegant circumstance, but we ate around a table that was set. And that was the way my neighbors in this little neighborhood in Pasadena, California, little post-war homes. But everybody thought it was important to sit down to a meal and talk. And in those days, the daddies came home. My daddy was one of those guys in a suit who came home with a briefcase and sat down, and the dinner was laid out for him and everything. And so he reigned over the dinner table. What he said was the important thing. What he had done was the important thing. But guess what? I learned so much about how life worked at that kitchen table.
Mm.
And I didn't even know what I was learning at that kitchen table. What I was learning, and it's only really become obvious to me lately, Greg, and as you already know this, I'm ancient. Um, I
Anciently young. Yeah. I think I'm going to call you out on that, but yeah.
Well, and this is the thing we're talking about, though. We're talking about age and
Mhm.
longevity and health into longevity. And I like talking about how old I am because, for one thing, I didn't think I'd make it,
Mm.
right? And
Interesting.
look, I'm
Yeah.
still here. I'm still standing. Well, I'm sitting, but I can still stand.
Yeah.
And I'm 78, and I think it's important for us to say those things aloud because guess what? It's fine. It's great. I have never been happier in my life. It's a great time of life for a lot of reasons. It comes with its own set of griefs, as we know. You lose
Mhm.
friends, you lose family members, but there is a freedom that comes with it that is really beautiful. Plus grandkids, plus other things, but we'll talk about that
Yeah.
later. Anyway, so I learned industrial marketing at my kitchen table, listening to my dad go on and on about his day.
Mm.
I didn't know then that I was learning about aeronautical engineering, about how to market an airline. I mean, these things that as a kid, you're just sitting there eating your spaghetti going, oh my God, I'm so bored. I wish he'd. But what we learned, and we knew how to behave at the table.
Hmm.
So when my kids were growing up and coming of age, I felt like the gift I could give them. I mean, I was a single mom of three. We had a crazy life. I had a crazy homicidal ex. It was all nuts. But my gift to them, as best I could do it, was going to be knowing how to sit at a table and defend an argument and, behave responsibly and clean up afterwards and help set up before. Those are, and we could probably list out 10 things, but what is more important in life to learn than those things
Sure.
that you only learn being forced to sit with your parents and your family at a table and eat nicely and keep your napkin on your lap?
Sure. Yeah, and relate and converse and have differing opinions.
Yes.
And most importantly, it is that shared experience. So, when we talk about, I like that the culture of the family table and who the guests are at the house and serving folks and, really having some of those, now I'm sounding old fashioned too, but it is true. Um, with regards to a way to bring back culture and have this aspect of food and how it plays a role in culture and the connection to land and place and identity. There's a lot of it's tied together. As a naturopathic doctor, my job is to address the root causes of illness, and this separation from self, out from family, from land, from production, from good food is a massive, heartache break. It creates a lot of isolation, so that's why I was really excited to have this conversation with you.
Let me
And
say it another way.
yeah,
Food is love.
yeah,
That's how we love each other. Always have, and hopefully always will.
yeah,
That's how you make friends. That's how you deal with enemies. I mean,
right.
table with food.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's
it-
not bioengineered food. We're talking about real whole food from Mother Earth that came from sun energy that then feeds us naturally. Like there's more than plenty to go around. It's distribution issues. And, this aspect, you at 78, you could be doing anything. Why this? Why is this in the mission of Lynn?
that's a good question. And I ask myself that every day. Wrong with you? Go play, go do something. And this is play for me. One of the main reasons I do it, Greg, I mean this sincerely. I meet the best people.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so fun making friends in Melbourne, Australia, and Tallahassee, Florida, and all these folks in Europe who are on the same path, who are on the mission with me, who I never would have had the opportunity to meet. So between writing my book and doing these podcasts, it's delightful to meet people
Yeah.
like you who are doing
Awesome.
what we do. But everybody asked me to write this book. And because I was feeding people, and because I found out early in my life that I was a type 2 diabetic,
Hmm.
I've been eating as healthy as I could, unlike a lot of people, for most of my adult life.
Yeah.
Since I was in my early 40s, I knew that if I didn't eat well and do some other things, exercise and so on, I would shorten my life. My kids would have to be taking care of me. And
Hmm.
my mother had died when I was 18 of a chronic disease, kidney disease. So I knew up close and personal what that looked like, felt like, what it did to your family, what it did to
Hmm.
the rest of your life. And I was determined I was not going to do that to my kids. And so it became so, I mean, I had a career doing other things and so on, but the eating part of it and staying healthy part of my life was such a constant for me. And then I realized that people would look at me and go, "Hey, how do you do that? and we always had people at my house because I had all these kids, so I couldn't go anywhere. So I had my social life around my table. And I came to understand that people didn't always get that kind of food or that kind of a social structure in their own lives. And they really appreciated it when they came and sat at my table and with my little rowdy kids. And uh, so as time went on, and as you know, I started writing these books, and people reacted positively. And so this last one, I really put my heart and soul in. And by the way, it's on Audible now.
Oh, great. So
Yeah, you
this
can.
is brownies for breakfast, right? So
And the subtitle is A Cookbook for Diabetics and the People Who Love Them.
love it.
So that's code for everybody, because
Yes.
we all know diabetics, right? Somebody
And
in your family.
totally. It's a massive, massive issue for so many people. And in the sugar component, I'm currently wearing a continuous glucose monitor. I do it periodically through time because it is a big component of longevity and understanding how food impacts your sugars and then insulin. It can really rapidly age you. So as you've noticed, and people coming around your table saying, "Hey, Lynn, how do you look so good? How do you have so much energy? How are you so strong?" And you're thinking, "Hey, well, this is from my diet." So tell us about the book.
Well, and after studying and reading and all this stuff, what I began to understand was that the medical community was lousy at
Mhm.
communicating what people should do. And I don't want to hear about the cellular structure, and I don't care about the electrolyte. I want to know what to do. What do I eat and what don't I eat? How do I stay healthy? And so I wrote the book that I never had. I wrote the book that I wish somebody had written for me, which is it's got some stories in it, and some grandma stuff, and I hope you'll enjoy that too.
Mhm.
'Cause it was the 60s, and hey, it was fun. And so, um, but I had never seen a book that told you how to eat sugar-free. If you want to eat vegan, fine, it's all in there. If you want to eat vegetarian, fine, it's in there. If you want to add some meat or fish, it's in there. But here's the deal. It's easy, it's cheap, it's uncomplicated. I'm a messy cook. I'm impatient, but I can do this and you can do this. And I have recipes in there with 2 ingredients, 3 ingredients. I tell you what to have in your larder that you really need, what you don't need, what to get rid of. And it's really not complicated at all. But the result, Greg, is that you eat better, yummier, cheaper, yes, true, than you were eating buying crappy food.
Mm,
Um, and
awesome.
it's simple.
We
It's
want
not.
to make it simple and easy. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And I took all the pictures myself because I didn't want you thinking that, yeah, fine. Look, it looks great when she does it in her kitchen with her stylist and everything. No, no, no. I did it just me with my iPhone. So you can do it. So this is how it's going to look when you make it. And it's
Love it.
easy. Yeah.
That's
It's not,
great.
yeah.
These resources are really important. So many folks, like I didn't really learn how to cook growing up in Western Pennsylvania in the 70s. That, we were like that generation, right? Where McDonald's came online and not saying that we didn't have home cooked meals, but we did have a lot of canned vegetables. We had a lot of pot roasts. We had, a lot of cookouts, etc. So it is, even now I'm learning how to cook. And I love it when my teenagers are saying, "Hey, I want to," they're contributing, they're making new recipes and they're actually contributing in the kitchen. And we are creating that family table, which feels so good where it is that time to decompress from the day and share some time. I think, it became this propaganda of you're wasting your time in the kitchen. And it's like, no, this is the love, food, food as medicine and as love and as coming together around the table. I think it's really appropriate and very timely for this. So I was really excited to get you on the podcast and share your message and your story with our listeners and viewers, because it can be simple, right?
Yeah,
Simple doesn't mean not good tasting. It just means simple.
it just means simple. And I have a couple things in there that sound very fancy. One of them is cassoulet, which
Yeah.
I learned to appreciate when I lived in France. It's delicious, but it's basically just a lentil stew. Um, and lentils are cheap, they're high protein. Another thing, I've experimented with veganism. I spent a year vegan just to see.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting, Greg, because yeah, dropped weight like crazy and felt fine. I've now kind of, I've done some different things, but I'm now kind of settled into a plant-based way of eating, and I add a little fish in, or I add a little meat in. I live right in the middle, as you were saying, of the place on earth where I can go down the street and meet the most beautiful designer chickens, whose names I know, and who
Sure.
lay the most glorious little eggs, and then down the street, the goats, the pigs, the little beautiful cattle on the hill, the little banded fat cattle. They're so gorgeous. So I can get the grass-fed, grass-finished, all that stuff if I want it, and it's good. And I'm not about to say that that is not a thing anybody should eat. But I don't want anybody eating factory farmed animals, for dang sure. Um, that's a real thing, not only for how we eat, but it is truly an awful way of polluting the earth. If you look into it at all, it's really a nasty business.
Yeah.
So nasty for the critters, and it's nasty for the people who do the critters, and it's nasty for the neighbors. I mean, it's just nasty all the way around. So yeah, there's so much for us to talk about. I don't know. What do you want? Hormone replacement therapy? Okay. Autophagy, one of my favorite subjects. Um, Electrolytes, that's a new thing for me. Yeah, and let's talk about that for just a minute, because I think a lot of your listeners are of a certain age, let's
Yeah.
say. And I am just now understanding that um, lack of water, uh, hydration can look like dementia. People
It
can use.
is true. It's one of the first recommendations that I have made for 25 years is you've got to be hydrated.
There you go.
It is such a big thing for pain, for memory, for
Yeah,
movement, for
yeah,
absorption of other minerals,
yeah.
etc.
And I think it's a thing that a lot of allopathic docs don't talk about, and they should. And I'm glad you do, and you're into it. Another thing that because I've just started in the last few months doing weight training, strength training. I had been working out, but people have this idea about if, if you're as old as I am, well, honey, you're getting on now, so these things aren't. Um,
Yeah.
no, not
Run
true.
from those people saying, get used to it. You're getting old. That is not a true statement. You're a
Yeah.
living testament of it. I have 80 and 90-year-old patients that are more fit than they were as 50 and 60-year-olds. It is truly possible. We're living at an amazing time. I'm really happy to hear that you started lifting weights, because that is a massive thing. As we age, any loss of muscle is very hard to put back on, and you're doing yourself such a service. Yeah.
Or a smallish, whitish old lady, your bones are likely to be somewhat frail. And if you don't want to take those medications that Big Pharma is selling us for that, and I don't, and I've seen some unfortunate circumstances for people who did, so
Yeah.
no thanks. One of the things we can do to still build bone, they're telling me, argue with me if I'm wrong, is to lift weights, to do strength training, that you can actually add density to your bones.
It
And
is true.
sign me up.
Yeah. It really is important. What I call it is training for the centenarian decathlon. What are the activities you want to be doing as a 100-year-old? And you had mentioned one of my favorite relationships on the planet, which is as grandparent. Now, I can wait for that, but I want you to speak to that because I had such a great relationship with my grandparents. My kids have a great relationship with their grandparents. It
Good for
is
you.
a lost relationship, but I really look forward to it personally when appropriate for my family. But I just want to hear your joy in that.
Well, I can't partly because I was so thrilled to have my kids. Loved, but they were 3 years apart. I mean, literally, when they were 2, 3, and 4, I became a single parent. So their young years were so chaotic, and I was the breadwinner, the single source, and so on. So I never had the chance to just be with them like a lot of parents do. I mean, we were together, we lived together, but I was here and there and
Keeping it
everywhere.
afloat. Yeah.
Yeah. So with grandchildren, I only have one that lives really, really close, and she is 4 miles up the road from me, and she's 16 now. So doing the Mimi, oh my gosh, your YouTube is just so, and I can't believe uh, but I take every word of it with joy and appreciation because she's my connection to a
Yeah.
couple of generations back. She's in her second year of college at a wonderful community college here. And we've been very close. And I mean, she spent so much time with us when she was a little one. She would sleep here and eat here and spend tons of time with us, which was so precious. Um, I can't even. So it's hard for me now that she's got this life and,
Indeed.
she's she has other things that she's doing, but I get to drive her. She's still not driving. And this is so interesting because kids, I mean, when we were 16, we could not wait to get behind the wheel and
Yeah.
go. Kids today, wisely so, aren't so eager. They're too smart. They see what it's like to be out there
Yeah.
driving around with all those crazy people. Um, So I'm still chauffeuring her a little bit, but I'm kind of secretly glad because that's good time that we can be together and talk about things like, um, okay, you want to hear crazy? She loves statistics.
Wow.
I mean, I
Awesome.
can't, and she flew through calculus. What?
That's awesome.
So I've
Yeah.
kind of wondered if the genetic thing, I don't know what happened there, but
It's in
she
there.
it's in there, but yeah, it's just such a lovely, lovely thing. And to be a parent without being a parent, grandma,
Yeah.
I get to hear the stuff that maybe mom, isn't too sure she wants to hear. I think it's great for kids to have someone that they know is on their team, they know loves them deeply, every square inch, but
Yeah.
it's okay to talk, it's
It's a
okay to talk.
great, it is an amazing relationship to have. And for any listeners and viewers out there, it doesn't have to be even of your kids. You could volunteer if you're older. You could volunteer at the preschools reading books and being involved. I think it is an amazing gift to give the youth and younger generations that connection because a lot of the families in North America have been dispersed everywhere. So we don't really have that baked in anymore. Lynn, this
Mm.
has been such a fun conversation. I
Are
want
we
to
done?
we're wrapping it up. So
No.
brownies for breakfast, a cookbook for diabetes and people who love them. I'm going to give you an opportunity to share some wisdom here at the end for our listeners and viewers though.
You don't even want my brownie recipe?
No, I want people to get your cookbook. I
Okay.
want to, I'm going to get your cookbook too. When you said it's simple recipes that are delicious, you had me at simple, but delicious is a bonus. And I am excited to share. We got the links in the show notes for
Good.
folks. It's a
Thank
very
you.
accessible book. And it really is. Let's bring back this tradition of the family table. That could be your neighbors. It could be friends over at your family table because they are your family. So, we're going to bring that back. I love it. It's the way that change is made is around the dining table, the kitchen table. That's where the real conversations are happening around the globe, is with loved ones and friends and family sharing food and love together. And
You
it
bet.
doesn't mean that we're all agreeing to what is said, but we're having the conversation, which counts. I'd love to, any last parting wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers.
Eat joyfully.
Mm, I love it. Yeah, thank you so much, Lynne. We'll have a link to your book in the show notes. And folks, if you got something out of today's conversation, please give us a thumbs up and write a comment as to what you are taking away from this conversation. Would love to, if you are so inspired, give us a 5-star review out there and let people know that we're out here delivering the goods. What the Health, Dr. Greg Eckel, Lynne Bowman, and the author of Brownies for Breakfast, a cookbook for diabetics and the people who love them. Thanks all.